The history of the United States is forever intertwined with the institution of slavery. From the early days of colonial America, slavery was a foundational element that shaped the economic and social structures of the burgeoning nation. It is a dark and painful chapter, one that continues to shape the nation's social, political and economic landscape. The echoes of this past are still felt today, influencing contemporary issues such as racial inequality, systemic discrimination and social justice movements. Understanding slavery's origins, its evolution and its enduring legacy is crucial for comprehending the complexities of American society today. The institution of slavery began in the early 17th century with the arrival of the first African slaves in Virginia in 1619. Over the next 2 centuries, it grew into a vast and brutal system that permeated every aspect of American life. This essay delves into the history of slavery in America, from its beginnings in the colonial period to its lasting impact on the present day. We will explore the economic motivations behind slavery, the daily lives of enslaved people, and the resistance and resilience they demonstrated in the face of unimaginable hardship. The transatlantic slave trade, a horrific enterprise driven by greed and exploitation, brought millions of Africans to the Americas against their will. The Middle Passage, the harrowing journey across the Atlantic, was marked by unimaginable suffering and a staggering loss of life. These individuals, stolen from their homelands and stripped of their humanity, were forced into a life of servitude and brutality. They labored in fields, homes and factories, their lives governed by the whims of their owners. Despite the dehumanizing conditions, enslaved people forged strong communities, maintained cultural traditions, and resisted their oppression in countless ways. The legacy of this inhumane system continues to reverberate through generations, demanding acknowledgement, understanding, and a commitment to justice. The abolition of slavery in 1865 was a monumental step, but it did not erase the deep-seated racial prejudices and systemic inequalities that persisted. The struggle for civil rights and equality has been long and arduous, with each generation building on the efforts of those who came before. Today, the fight for justice continues as we strive to create a society that truly values and respects the dignity of all its members. The year 1619 marks a pivotal moment in the history of slavery in America. In August of that year, a Dutch ship arrived at Point Comfort, Virginia, carrying a cargo of 20 and odd Negroes. These Africans, the first to arrive in the English colonies, were traded for supplies, marking the beginning of a centuries-long nightmare. Initially, these Africans were likely treated as indentured servants, similar to many poor Europeans who exchanged years of labor for passage to the New World. However, the distinction between indentured servitude and chattel slavery soon blurred. As the demand for labor grew, particularly in the burgeoning tobacco fields, colonial society began to codify the enslavement of Africans. Laws were enacted that transformed the status of Africans from temporary servants to lifelong property, solidifying the institution of slavery in the colonies. The shift from indentured servitude to racialized slavery was gradual but deliberate. Colonial legislatures enacted a series of laws that systematically stripped Africans of their rights and solidified their status as property. In 1641, Massachusetts became the first colony to legally recognize slavery. Virginia followed suit in 1660, declaring that any child born to an enslaved mother would also be enslaved for life. These laws, rooted in racist ideologies that deemed Africans as inferior, laid the foundation for a system of hereditary slavery that would define the American South for centuries. The concept of race, used to justify the enslavement of Africans, became deeply entrenched in the fabric of colonial society, shaping social relations, economic structures, and political power dynamics. Section 4. King Cotton's Reign, the Cotton Gin and the Expansion of Slavery. The story of cotton in America is one of both innovation and tragedy, a tale of how a single invention could reshape an entire economy and society. The invention of the cotton gin in 1793 by Eli Whitney revolutionized the cotton industry. Before the cotton gin, separating cotton fibers from their seeds was an arduous and time-consuming process, limiting the amount of cotton that could be processed and sold. Whitney's machine changed all that, making it possible to clean cotton quickly and efficiently. This innovation had a profound impact on the institution of slavery, as it made cotton production vastly more profitable. The cotton gin, a machine that efficiently separated cotton fibers from their seeds, dramatically increased the profitability of cotton production. With the ability to process cotton faster, plantation owners could now produce much larger quantities of cotton, leading to a boom in the cotton industry. This led to a surge in demand for slave labor, particularly in the southern states where cotton cultivation thrived. The southern economy became heavily reliant on cotton, and by extension on the labor of enslaved African Americans. As cotton became the dominant cash crop of the South, the number of enslaved people skyrocketed. The profitability of cotton made it the cornerstone of the Southern economy, and the demand for more land and labor to grow and harvest it increased exponentially. The internal slave trade, which involved the forced migration of enslaved people from the Upper South to the Deep South, intensified, tearing apart families and subjecting countless individuals to brutal conditions. This internal trade became a grim business, as enslaved people were sold and transported to meet the labor demands of expanding cotton plantations. The cotton gin, while a technological marvel, solidified the South's dependence on slave labor and fueled the expansion of slavery westward. As new territories were acquired and settled, the institution of slavery spread, embedding itself deeply into the fabric of American society. The legacy of the cotton gin is thus a complex one, marked by both economic growth and human suffering. Section 5. Revolution and Contradiction. Freedom's Cry Amidst Enslavement. The American Revolution, fought for liberty and self-determination, presented a stark contradiction to the institution of slavery. The colonists' rallying cry for freedom from British tyranny echoed through the streets, yet the same voices often remained silent on the issue of human bondage. The ideals of equality and freedom espoused in the Declaration of Independence clashed with the reality of a nation built on the backs of enslaved people. The famous words, "All men are created equal," penned by Thomas Jefferson, a slaveholder himself, highlighted the glaring inconsistency between the nation's principles and its practices. While many colonists recognized the hypocrisy of fighting for their own freedom while denying it to others, the economic and political power of the slaveholding elite prevented any meaningful action towards abolition. The Southern economy, heavily reliant on slave labor for its agricultural output, particularly in the production of tobacco and cotton, made the prospect of ending slavery seem economically unfeasible to many. However, the revolution did inspire some to question the morality of slavery. Enlightenment ideas of natural rights and the inherent dignity of all human beings began to take root, leading to the emergence of early abolitionist voices. Figures such as Benjamin Rush and Anthony Benezet began to speak out against the institution, laying the groundwork for future movements. Northern states, where slavery was less entrenched in the economy, began to take steps towards gradual emancipation. The industrializing North, with its growing urban centers and diversified economy, found it easier to envision a society without slavery. This contrasted sharply with the agrarian South, where the institution was deeply woven into the social and economic fabric. Vermont abolished slavery outright in 1777, and other northern states followed suit in the decades that followed. Pennsylvania enacted a gradual emancipation law in 1780, and by the early 19th century, states like New York and New Jersey had also taken significant steps towards ending slavery. The Revolution, while not ending slavery, planted the seeds for the abolitionist movement that would gain momentum in the 19th century. The ideals of liberty and equality, though not fully realized, provided a powerful framework for future generations to challenge and ultimately dismantle the institution of slavery. The struggle for freedom and justice continued, echoing the cries of those who had been denied their humanity, and setting the stage for the long and arduous journey towards true equality.